All right, picture this. It's 266 BC. The Greek city of Megara is completely surrounded, like under siege, by the army of Antigonus II Gonatas. Now, Antigonus, he's got war elephants, right? I mean, basically the ancient equivalent of tanks.
Yeah.
And things aren't looking too good for the Megarians.
You could say they had like a secret weapon. Well, more like a secret tactic hidden away.
Okay, I'm intrigued what they do.
They got a bunch of pigs, doused them in anything flammable, you know. Pitch, oil, resin, anything that would catch fire easily. Then they lit those pigs on fire and sent them, squealing and blazing, straight towards the enemy's elephants.
Flaming pigs, seriously.
Oh, it's a real thing. It's actually documented. And get this, it worked. Elephants, they're terrified of fire, so you can imagine the chaos. Those flaming pigs broke up the siege, and the Megarians, they snatched an unexpected victory.
So today we're diving into this wild world of animals in warfare, specifically their roles as weapons and, well, as we've just heard, living incendiary devices. We're going deep, exploring historical accounts, actual military records, and even some modern research.
It's amazing how this goes so far beyond just horses and camels, you know?
Right, everyone pictures, like, horses charging into battle. But flaming pigs, that's another level.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's start with those more conventional roles. You mentioned camels.
Well, think about the Soviet Red Army in World War II. They actually used camels, and a lot of them, down in the Southern Theater, especially in the Kalmyk steppes.
So why camels? Were they just tough and good with the terrain?
It was more strategic than that. The terrain was rough, vehicles were scarce, and camels could handle those conditions way better than trucks. Plus, they don't need as much water, huge advantage in a desert.
So not weapons themselves, but essential for the Red Army's movement. This leads us to animals actually used as fighters.
Like dogs. The Greeks and Romans used them a lot, both to attack and defend. They even kitted them out with spiked collars and armor. Imagine facing a pack of those charging at you.
I definitely pass on that experience.
Yeah.
Seems like every corner of history has some unexpected animal combatant. Wasn't there an Egyptian pharaoh with a pet lion fighting alongside him?
Ramses II, that's the one. Accounts mention his lion being in the Battle of Kadesh. Historians still debate the details, but it definitely adds to that image of power and ferocity rulers loved.
Makes sense. So if lions made it into the history books, were there other animals people tried to, like, weaponize that didn't work out?
Oh, tons. Think about the rhinoceros. We've got those old woodcuts of armored rhinos, super dramatic, but in reality, useless as war beasts.
Too big and clumsy.
More their physiology. Rhinos have terrible eyesight and they spook easily. Not exactly what you want in a reliable war animal.
Good point. Back to those flaming pigs for a sec. Just one example of animals as living incendiary devices, right?
Right. And there are others. The Southern Song Dynasty in China, for example, 13th century battle, they used monkeys as incendiary weapons.
Weaponized monkeys. Tell me more.
Imagine this. Monkeys. Dressed in straw, soaked in oil, set on fire, and then let loose in the enemy camp.
Terrifying. And effective, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. Huge factor in their victory. It caused panic and disruption everywhere. It does raise those ethical questions, though.
Absolutely. Ingenuity in warfare, often at a huge cost, especially to the animals. Which, sadly, brings us to the most unsettling part of all this. Animals used not just as incendiary devices, but as bombs.
Yeah, it's a grim chapter in warfare. Strapping explosives to animals and using them like guided missiles. Fascinating and disturbing all at once.
It really pushes the limits of what's acceptable, even in war. Where do we even begin with this?
World War II is a good starting point. The Soviet anti-tank dogs. Facing those German tanks, the Soviets trained dogs to carry explosives right under them.
I've heard about this, and it's always bothered me. Did it actually work?
Mixed results. Some dogs did take out tanks, but many were shot before they got there. And some, scared by all the noise and chaos, ran back to their own lines, caused friendly casualties.
That's just tragic. The impact of war, not just on people, but on the animals pulled into it. And the Soviets weren't alone in these experiments, were they?
Nope. The U.S. had its own controversial projects in World War II. Project Pigeon, for one.
Project Pigeon, what was that?
Using pigeons, they have amazing homing abilities, right? The idea was to use them to guide bombs to targets.
Living feathered guidance systems.
Exactly.
Did they, like, attach bombs to the pigeons?
Not quite. They trained them to peck at images of targets displayed inside a device on the bomb. That pecking would adjust the trajectory.
Sounds ingenious, but also super complicated. Did it work?
In tests, the pigeons were surprisingly accurate, but the project was eventually dropped. Other technologies were developing that seemed more promising.
Still a fascinating look into wartime creativity, and sometimes desperation. Pigeons weren't the only flying creatures they experimented with, were they? What about those bat bombs?
Ah, yes, the bat bombs. This one involved Mexican free-tailed bats, each carrying a small incendiary device. The plan was to release them over enemy cities.
So they'd roost in buildings, and the bombs would ignite, causing fires.
Exactly. Swarms of bats raining fire down.
Thankfully, that never happened.
Despite testing and some early successes, the project was considered too unpredictable and was abandoned.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, are animals still used this way today?
Sadly, yes. Some terrorist groups, especially in the Middle East, they've used animals like donkeys and mules to carry explosives.
A reminder that this dark side of animal warfare hasn't gone away. But alongside these disturbing examples, there's also a history of animals used for more covert operations.
Right. Deception, psychological warfare, even espionage, a whole different side to their involvement in conflict.
Okay, now this is getting interesting. Spy animals. Tell me everything.
Let's go back to ancient Egypt. Battle of Pelusium, 525 BC. The Persian army, led by Cambyses II, used a, well, unusual tactic against the Egyptians.
Cats.
Cats.
As weapons. How?
The Egyptians revered cats, considered them sacred. So the Persians put cats right in front of their troops as they advanced. The Egyptian archers hesitated to shoot, they didn't want to harm the cats, gave the Persians a big advantage.
Brilliant. Psychological warfare. Using cultural beliefs to gain an edge. But that's just messing with minds. What about actual animal spies?
Those existed too. Homing pigeons, used for carrying messages since the Middle Ages. Both world wars, they played crucial roles.
The original drone delivery service.
Yeah.
Did anyone try to go beyond just messages?
Yeah.
A true animal secret agent.
Believe it or not, the CIA tried in the 1960s. Project Acoustic Kitty.
Acoustic Kitty. The name alone is amazing.
They surgically implanted listening devices and transmitters into cats, hoping to use them to eavesdrop in Soviet embassies.
Feline James Bond. Did it work?
Not even close. The first acoustic kitty was reportedly hit by a taxi on its very first mission. The project was too expensive, too impractical. They scrapped it.
Hilarious, but also kind of sad. You can't really train a cat to be a Cold War spy.
Apparently not, but it shows how far intelligence agencies were willing to go during the Cold War. Cats weren't the only ones considered for these types of missions, though. Early 2000s, there were reports of the Pentagon looking into using sharks for underwater espionage.
Shark spies. Now that's a movie I'd watch.
Right. Sharks have incredible senses, perfect for detecting underwater mines, enemy submarines, all sorts of threats. The idea was to use implants to control them and use their senses for intelligence gathering.
So did we ever have actual shark spies?
The details are classified, so who knows? But the idea itself is fascinating, shows that line between science fiction and reality, especially military tech. It's always blurring.
It's mind-blowing, all the different ways animals have been used in war, from battlefields to espionage. But beyond fighting and spying, there's also a long history of using animals for protection and detection, right?
Absolutely. Throughout history, animals have been vital for detecting danger, especially when technology just isn't enough. And in this area, dogs have proven themselves time and again.
Makes sense. Their sense of smell and hearing, incredible. Perfect for sniffing out danger.
Exactly. For centuries, dogs have been used to detect mines, booby traps, even snipers. Saved countless lives in both world wars, and they're still serving today. Military working dogs detecting explosives, patrolling, providing support to soldiers.
Amazing how their abilities are still so relevant, even with all our technology. But dogs aren't the only ones with a nose for danger, are they?
You're right. Giant African pouched rats have gotten attention for their amazing ability to detect landmines.
Wait, rats? How does that even work?
Their size is actually what makes them so good at it. They can move through minefields without setting off the explosives. And their sense of smell. Perfect for finding TNT.
Oh, never underestimate the power of a good nose, even on a rat.
Exactly. Their work shows how important it is to recognize the unique strengths of different species, even in something like warfare.
Makes you wonder, are there examples of animals used in underwater warfare too?
Of course. During the Cold War, both the U.S. and the Soviet Union experimented with marine mammals. Dolphins and sea lions, mainly. For military purposes.
Dolphin soldiers. Seriously, what could they even do?
Dolphins have incredible sonar. They can detect underwater mines, even enemy submarines. The sonar systems of the animal kingdom. Vital intelligence in the underwater environment.
And sea lions.
Sea lions have great vision and agility underwater. They were trained for things like recovering objects and underwater surveillance.
Like Navy SEALs of the animal world.
Exactly.
Do these marine mammal programs ever see actual combat?
There are reports of dolphins being used in the Vietnam War and the Persian Gulf War, mostly for harbor patrol and mine detection, but the specifics are still classified. A fascinating and kind of mysterious chapter in animal warfare. It does raise ethical questions, though.
Absolutely. Using animals in warfare, even for tasks like detection and protection, it comes with risks and some tough moral dilemmas. And that's something we need to explore further. So we've gone through history, uncovered these amazing ways animals have been used in warfare, flaming pigs, secret cat agents. It's been a journey. It's clear that our relationship with animals in conflict, it's complicated and ethically challenging.
It really makes you think about the responsibility we have when we put animals in these situations. So dangerous, morally questionable.
Exactly. So, wrapping up this deep dive, let's look ahead. If animals are still going to be part of warfare, how do we ensure they're treated well? How do we minimize their suffering?
That's the key question. And there are a few areas where we need to see progress. First and foremost, animal welfare has to be a priority. In training, deployment, everything.
So things like vet care, making sure they can socialize, have some kind of enrichment, reducing stress and trauma as much as possible.
Exactly. We need to stop seeing them just as tools. Recognize them as living beings with complex needs. Their well-being has to come first.
Couldn't agree more. But beyond that, are there ways to just use fewer animals for these dangerous tasks?
Definitely. We should be pouring resources into developing other technologies. Drones, robots, sensors, they have the potential to do a lot of what puts animals at risk.
So instead of dogs sniffing out explosives, we could have robots doing it.
Exactly. We should be exploring and using these humane alternatives whenever we can.
Makes sense. What about the animals already serving? What happens to them when they're done?
Another crucial area. Every military animal needs a safe, comfortable retirement. That means good homes, continued medical care, and therapy if they need it, to help them adjust to civilian life.
I've seen those stories. Retired military dogs reunited with their handlers, living out their days peacefully.
Those stories should be the rule, not the exception. Every animal that serves deserves a happy ending.
Absolutely. But to get there, we need a change in how we think about this. Not just in the military, but in society as a whole.
You're right. We need to stop seeing animals as expendable. Acknowledge their value, the sacrifices they make.
Education's a big part of this, isn't it? The more people understand these animals, their lives, their needs, the more support there'll be for protecting them.
Absolutely. Documentaries, news reports, even fictional stories. If they portray that bond between humans and animals in war accurately, they can be powerful tools. Raise awareness, build empathy.
And we can't forget about laws. Strong laws and regulations are vital.
Absolutely. We need to advocate for policies that protect these animals, ensure they're treated well, get proper care, have a good retirement.
This deep dive has been, well, eye-opening. History, ethical challenges, potential solutions. It's a lot.
What stands out to you most? What's your biggest takeaway?
I think what hit me hardest is that how we treat animals in war. It says a lot about us, about our values, our humanity.
I like that. It forces us to look at ourselves, our actions. Can we wage war in a way that minimizes suffering, that respects all life, and stays true to our own moral compass?
A powerful question. And it goes beyond just the battlefield. It's about our responsibility to all living creatures.
A question worth thinking about, for sure.
Thank you for joining us on this journey, exploring this fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of animals and warfare. We hope it sparked your curiosity, made you think, and maybe even inspired you to consider the ethical impact of our actions in conflict and in our everyday lives.